Hey guys, what's going on? Today we are talking about 7 common mistakes to avoid when first starting out. Alright guys, thank you for clicking on the video. So today we're talking about 7 common mistakes to avoid when becoming a filmmaker or freelance videographer or whatever it is you're doing behind the camera. These are just good things to know and to avoid, to just not do them.
Don't ever do that again.
So if you're new to the channel and you're just wanting to learn more about filmmaking or videography, or wanting to know what gear to get or what's good and what's not good, so go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe if you guys are wanting to continue to grow and learn more. Let's do this together. All right, so mistake number 1 to avoid is
rule number 1. I'm number 1.
using the wrong frame rate. So this is a really common thing when first starting out. I remember a few years ago when I bought my first DSLR, I had no idea what frame rates even were. When starting out, using the correct frame rate is going to be huge. I always try and film everything in 24 frames per second. So this is going to be the most cinematic looking. 24 frames per second is closest to what our eyes actually see. It's going to give you that motion blur that you're seeing. 24 FPS is what they're using in all big movies you see, major productions. They're all filming in 24 frames per second.
Do it.
In your settings, I mean, you see 24 frames per second, there's gonna be 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, depending on your camera, and some of them are gonna have 120 frames per second. And if you're doing any slow-mo stuff, then definitely go into 60 frames. That way you can slow that down to about 40%. That's gonna give you a nice buttery slow motion. And if you have 120 frames, that's gonna give you a super slow, very buttery slow motion, which is awesome for some really good B-roll shots.
Do it.
So it's just important to know these different frame rates and to know what they actually look like and to use them at the proper time. All right, we're gonna cruise outside and film a small sequence, and we're gonna film the same sequence 3 or 4 different times. Each time, we're gonna change the frame rate. That way you guys can kind of see the difference. All right, let's go. All right, I hope that was helpful for you guys. So mistake number 2 to avoid is shooting at the wrong ISO. It's really important to shoot at your camera's native ISO, or if it doesn't have a native ISO, then to just keep the ISO as low as possible. What ISO is doing is almost creating like a fake light for your camera. When you're in dark situations and you turn your ISO up, it's tricking your sensor into thinking there's more light, and so what it's causing is you're gonna get a lot of grain in your shadows or even over your whole image. It's gonna be super noisy and there's gonna be a lot of grain, and it's just not gonna look good. So it's important to keep that ISO as low as you can. Sometimes you gotta crank it up a little bit, which is okay, but when you do too much is when you're gonna start getting all that like nasty grain and just a lot of stuff in your shadows that it's not gonna look good at all. So shooting at the native ISO is going to give you the cleanest image. It's also going to help you get the most out of your camera. When the ISO is at its lowest or native, you are going to get the most dynamic range from your camera. And dynamic range is the range from shadows and highlights. Once that image is recorded onto your memory card and then you're in post looking at it, there's no recovering that.
No, that's it.
Just make sure you guys are shooting at the lowest ISO or your camera's native ISO to get the cleanest possible image. All right, so mistake number 3 to avoid is shooting in auto. A lot of people will buy their camera, turn it in auto, and then just start shooting. So when you do that, you're losing a lot of your camera's capability. And you're also not giving yourself a lot of opportunity to be completely creative and have full range of your camera. And one of the biggest things is going to be that f-stop. It's going to be that shallow depth of field. So having control over that is going to be huge. You want to know what all these settings do. You want to know what a frame rate is. You want to know what ISO is, what shutter speed is, what aperture is, your f-stop. All these settings have a purpose at a certain point in time. It's going to help you become a more creative and a better filmmaker when you start shooting everything in manual. Alright, so mistake number 4 to avoid is going to be bad audio. Audio is so important when it comes down to video. It's really the audio that helps draw people in. Honestly, buying a microphone is one of the first things I invested in, and I highly encourage you guys to as well. It's going to be a lot better than what your camera is recording internally. It's going to bring your production value up so much more when you're having good audio on your video. Alright, so mistake number 5 is going to be bad music choice. So it's super important to have good music behind your video. I've heard of a lot of people who will edit a whole video and then just slap a song in there. Guys, you do not want to do this. First of all, you want to find your song and then edit to that song. If a song has certain beats to it or there's highs and lows to the song, you want to edit your sequence to those beats, and picking the right song is really just going to add to your video. So when you have an awesome song and you're editing all your clips and all your cuts are just matching up and lining up to the beats of the song, and it's gonna flow so much better when what you're watching is lining up with what you're hearing, and when it's just gonna kind of help tell the story. So it's just gonna bring your video quality, the production quality, it's gonna bring it to that next level. And take your time finding music. That's one of the things that honestly takes me the longest when I'm creating a video, is to find the right song, but it's so worth it in the end result. All right, mistake number 6 to avoid is to not color grade your footage. When I first started out, I didn't even know what color grading was. I really thought it was the camera you had is what produced like those awesome colors, which that does affect it, yes, but you can also color grade your stuff in post. And I see a lot of people doing videos and they're just not color grading their videos, and it's bringing the quality down so much more. And depending on your camera, you really don't have to do a lot to it, but even just doing some basic color grading is gonna make your image look so much better. Maybe adjusting your highlights, shadows, adding some saturation, adjusting the contrast curve, and maybe some color to your midtones. So when you're color grading something, it's really just adding to the quality of your production. And people are gonna remember that quality.
Ooh, this is nice!
So I just highly encourage you guys to color grade your videos. Alright guys, and mistake number 7 is gonna be not telling a story. A story really is what every video is. Does that even make sense? A story is what every video is? I'm gonna have to think on that one for a minute. But really, people are watching a story, whether it's an interview video, a wedding video, some event recap, a highlight video, short film, whatever it is, it's telling a story. And that's what people want to watch. They want to watch something that tells a story.
Tell me a story.
Whoever's watching your video, the viewer, the audience, they're gonna want to be pulled into a story. So make sure you just plan out your video, you have an idea of maybe what you want it to look like, or you have a good idea of what the story is. That way when you're filming it, you already have this idea in your head on what the final result is gonna look like. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and let me know your guys' thoughts. Go ahead and drop a comment below. Alright, I'll see you next time. God bless.